So convincing myself by creating myself, and maybe that will shine some light on this process, on the original blueprint, and if that blueprint can grow. And I feel like a seed again, and that blueprint is there. And now that I'm not being poisoned, something might flower. I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to talk myself through it. And in a way, all this energy got translated into all these words over the last year because this energy got translated into mental illness. And because it got translated into mental illness, the energy spoke words about being translated into mental illness. And now that it's not chemicalized, it might just want to speak about something completely different. And mental illness is just words. And it's actually seeing that words make us ill. Yet we have certain words circulating in our brains that we feel are healthy. I don't know about that. To me, it's just a collected pool of words because we're not creating. We're not seeing the moment and acting in the moment. I feel all inner words in the way that we know them are mental illness. Can we go from mental illness to mental stillness and create? If we have thoughts going on, we're actually moving in habit on automatic pilot, and no wonder we feel like we're missing something. And we can't see clearly when words meet the moment. And I've probably said similar stuff. I don't want to repeat myself too much because I have a lot to cover with myself. Or uncover, I should say. And I shouldn't say should. When the word meets the moment, we don't move. If I would have been able to keep moving in that energy 6 years ago with the original blueprint, there would have been no need to sit down and make words about it. But maybe I do need to keep making words about it even now, being outside the system, because there aren't necessarily enough people moving in this way, moving in the creative way. A person of thought meets a person in that creative energy and just doesn't know what to do, so they just brush them aside and they get funneled towards the mental health system. And we're so busy making words in our head that we're not making the world. We're not making our world. We're living in the words we've been given that swirl and whirl in our heads and confuse us, and we're not even living, we're not creating. So it's now being translated back to that original energy without being funneled through the interpretation and interpreting itself through that old system. Maybe I'll just call it the old system, because that kind of includes even these healthy patterns that we think are healthy, but really no pattern is healthy. Projecting something and then living according to that isn't healthy. It's discordant with life. Life doesn't need words. Life can use words, but right now, words are using life for its own devices. And I remembered a name I made for myself at one point, relentlessly ridiculous, because I've been relentless, but I also want to move into being more ridiculous. And talking to myself for a year is definitely pretty ridiculous, so I guess I am relentlessly ridiculous already. And I was thinking about what this next year will be about, and I might talk about that with myself for a while to really get that embedded in my nervous system, instead of trying to read the next tweet or the next blog telling me what I think I should do. And it's about embodying, and it's about magic, and it's about altruism. I've talked about altruism a lot, yet I haven't really embodied that yet, and it's important because it's part of the design of that magic, actually. And also reaching out and maybe sharing some of this as audios. I don't know. I'm going to wait for the right time to share. But in terms of the altruism, I was talking about altruism yesterday, and I got an email from a friend the day before, but I didn't read it yet. And this is what happens a lot. I don't read something, and then I make a video, and then I read the thing that was there before, but now it actually is what I was exactly talking about. And a friend sent me a blurb by Steve Taylor, who is an author and lecturer, and he, I believe, was influenced a lot by Eckhart Tolle, and he was talking about some of the different things that are going on in London in terms of terrorist attacks, and I don't follow the news, so just reading someone's blurb about that is enough for me. I'm aware, and I can't actually watch it. It will, I don't know. And he says in this email, there are some positive things that come out of these terrible events. It's amazing how altruistic people become after tragedies. And the innate kindness of human beings manifests itself very powerfully. In Manchester, a homeless man called Chris Parker was waiting outside the concert arena and rushed in when he heard the explosion. As he said, instead of running away, my gut instinct was to run back and try to help. He saw a young girl who had lost her legs in the blast, wrapped her in a t-shirt, and helped her to contact her parents. He comforted an elderly woman who had serious head injuries, who died in his arms. Separately, another homeless person named Stephen Jones was sleeping rough near the venue and also rushed to help. He found many children covered with blood, screaming and crying. With a friend who accompanied him, they pulled out nails out of the children's arms, and in one case out of a child's face, and helped a woman who was bleeding severely by holding her legs in the air. It was just my instinct to help people out, he said. And he talks about taxis turning off their meter to transport people, etc. And so there's this tragedy, and then people become altruistic. And I've talked about how, to me, map consciousness is like when our inner tragedy of our own life and the collective is so there for us. It turns on this something that makes us altruistic. It's like we sense this whole inner tragedy within without having to see something on the outside, like something exploding people. We see it, we see what's happening everywhere, and it's innate in the structure of how everything's set up. And it turns us into these altruistic beings without having to experience a tragedy like that. It's happening everywhere. We're all experiencing it. We're all one consciousness. But of course, if something tragic happens, people will rise to the occasion. A lot of people will. But I feel like this map consciousness process makes us rise to our own occasion. And it also makes us rise to all the occasions that have happened throughout time and mutate and change. Just like these homeless people rose up and helped, yet nobody's rising up to help them. And so reading this just connected me with that. Something to something with homelessness. I don't know what. And I just talked about maybe it's just being home less and being out more and being with people more. We all go home, we watch TV, and we watch these entertaining things of how we wish we could live our lives, but we don't. We just sit and watch it on TV. But if we spend an hour of that time actually being home less and just being altruistic more, not waiting for a tragedy. There's tragedies happening everywhere all the time. And can that awareness move us into altruism? It's happening somewhere. And I'm talking to myself here. Can I do that? Because that collective energy, that collective psyche, that collective unconsciousness is right there beside me and behind me and catching up. And it would push me to be that altruistic person. But can I be that without waiting for that energy to come in and give me a kick in the butt so hard that I might not survive it? So it's altruism by necessity, by design, not by, oh, I want to do something nice. No, other people are me, and I've sensed that. Just like Krishnamurti says, I am the world and the world is me. We're all imprisoned by this psychological group structure that we think is there. It's nowhere. There's no group. Yet we all are adjusting to this invisible, unwritten rules of society, like the title of Temple Grandin's book that I've never read, but I feel like I know what she's talking about. Perhaps there are unwritten rules of society, and we pause to those unwritten rules and we don't act. And the only thing that gets us to act is when something so terrible happens that those rules go by the wayside and we're willing to risk our own life for another, because we see how much they're suffering. But can we not see how much each of us are suffering without catastrophe? Life is catastrophe, but we're not sensing that. We're just moving about in our little habits and things, and there's a spider on the wall, and I just don't like these guys. Anyways, I'll just leave him talking about altruism. I can't kill a spider. I could trap him, but he's so damn fast. Anyway, you be you over there. You be you, and I'll be me. And just don't bite my ankles, okay? I know I killed your father. So the next part of Stephen Taylor's bit says, "To me, all this proves how absurd it is when scientists suggest that human beings are innately selfish and try to explain away altruism as a kind of mistake or disguised form of egoism. We human beings are always deeply interconnected. This is how we can sense each other's suffering. We share the same essence of being, so when others feel pain, we feel it too. And that triggers this instinct to try to alleviate the pain of another, even our own lives, for the sake of others, because we sense that we actually are them. In everyday life, when things are running smoothly and normally, it's easy for us to switch into self-centered mode, in which our needs and desires take precedence. But crises and tragedies reawaken us to our innate connectedness." And this whole life is a tragedy. So many of us are living in tragedy, and I feel like the only strategy to move out of that is creation, to create something beyond this world of trauma that we all live in. And that collective world of trauma is what coalesces as these tragic events on the outside. And then we react to that because we can't feel each other. We can't look into each other's souls. And I've talked a lot about how when we become sensitive by being in contact with this collective tragedy, the collective unconscious, not our own personal history only, but the whole thing, we're right with that tragedy every second. And so when we look at someone, we can sense that in them, and we're sensitive to all of it because we've touched upon all of it. And so that's part of the gift, and that's part of what recalibrates our nervous system to be able to be empathetic, not just experience empathy, but act as that empathy, which is altruism, because we can see it. We're in touch with that other being, and then we can't walk by and have our desires and pleasures and preferences looping in our head while we walk by things on automatic pilot. So I wanted to share that. It was pretty timely and synchronistic and a sign. And it seems like we don't actually see signs, we create the signs. So by talking to myself about this altruism thing, somebody just happened to send me this altruistic blurb, and this person doesn't send me stuff often, maybe one other thing ever, and it's exactly on point with where I'm at right now. And that could even be that person responding to my energy. It's not separate. There's this relationship, and that person sends a message, and it's an email, and that's an accepted form of, oh, somebody sent me a message. But if it's something else, if it's something weird like an image or seeing something that might not be there, that could just be a message being sent. It's like this holographic text messaging that hasn't yet been invented, but has been at some point in time space. So it is invented in a way. One day we'll have hologram text messaging, just kind of like Star Wars, and it's looking like we won't need a whole droid to transmit that. It'll probably just be like a very small device, or no device. So it could be a form of holographic text messaging from the universe that we're just not paying attention to, and we don't really understand that language, but we can get in contact with that. And interestingly enough, this same friend told me, hey, there's a film called Emerging Proud, and I haven't yet emailed back and said I was part of that campaign. So it's good to know that the word about that film is getting out. I need to take my hearty nutritionals, I forgot. Actually, speaking of which, that same friend gave me this water bottle. Loving What Is. It's by Byron Katie. I haven't really followed any of her work, but it's that synchronistic water bottle I got when I didn't pack a water bottle. That's the other thing I forgot to pack. And I got one from this friend who attended 2 of her workshops, so he had an extra one. And it's been the best gift ever because I use it every day. And loving what is. Maybe what is loving us. But we have to learn to speak that language of recognizing that. So I feel like we speak signs into existence. We create the signs. So in a way, we can also create the altruism. Altruism doesn't just show up. It's something that I need to create. I need to create that as a large piece of the quantum holographic pie of my life. And related to that David Lukoff video too, how he's trying to teach the mental health system that a lot of these things are actually spiritual crisis and not psychotic disorders. And I feel like the difference between spiritual crisis and psychotic disorders isn't necessarily the few little symptoms or something. Like, oh, if they have this extra bit or this extra bit, then that means they're psychotic. And if not, then it's just a spiritual crisis. I think it's actually like Schrodinger's cat. In that state, we're actually both psychotic and in spiritual crisis until observed. So once we're observed by a psychiatrist, obviously we're psychotic. But if we're observed by unconditional love and caring, then it's translated into a spiritual crisis. There's no way a psychiatrist is going to say, oh, it's just a spiritual crisis. So I see that in a way what he's trying to do is perhaps get psychiatrists to see that it could be spiritual crisis, but the trouble is they've had so much training and indoctrination, they're going to default to their very expensive training in order to interpret people and warp the entire trajectory of their life. So anyways, I just wanted to point out that it's kind of a Schrodinger's cat situation. So can we be a different Schrodinger? Can we be a Schrodinger that's unconditionally loving and would only select for the spiritual crisis and the transformation? And we really need to do that for each other. We can't just rely on psychiatrists. And I've been writing down a couple 1 or 2 liners, and I don't know if they're of any value, but here it goes. Life creates matter, and then we spend our life energy wondering how matter creates life. We wouldn't shake a new box of Lego and hope that it will be put together. We would never shake a new boxed up Lego set and hope that through the shaking process, opening the box, the set of Lego would be put together properly. That line could actually be created more smoothly, but what I'm trying to say is the life of the child puts the Lego together. The life puts the bits together, not the bits put the life together. It's obvious to me, I don't know. That's just my two-liner. And the other one is, how long will it take us to figure out that there's nothing to figure out? Then we can figure into this creation of which we are an integral part. And I'm sensing that I might put some stuff together for a book because the writing is becoming more writing-like. So maybe I can actually write some things down that are just writing and not talk about them, or talk about them plus put them into something that could be writing or whatever. I don't really know. I just feel like there could be a little bit more flow with it. And that could be part of this embodiment, is sharing, writing something. I don't know. Oh, I have a couple liners here. If we don't know, intelligence knows and does the doing. Just watch. Then it happens just as if magic. And not by the unwritten rules of thought. We aren't human beings, but energy being human. That might be a good one. And these are sort of amusing to me because they just sort of come out. And these are sort of amusing to me because they just sort of come through me. I don't like the word come. Flow. I think that's okay. They just sort of flow through me. They are channeled through me. I'm a channeler. Woo! Maybe just today. And part of this could actually be picking the part that I want to play. The last part I played, which was of chronic mental patient with a serious and persistent mental illness, was not a part I wanted to play. And it was a part I had to play because I didn't figure into the part that the blueprint was showing me that I was to play. And maybe I wasn't playing enough, and it became serious, and part of this is finding that play again too. Or maybe these could be tweets, or maybe I could share them on my blog. I kind of like the hashtag profoundly crazy. The herd mentality is living life based on what one has heard, thus being a part of the herd. The seen mentality is living life based on what one sees for oneself, thus stands alone. And I actually just saw when saying that we actually just are the herd. We are the world, we are the herd. Whatever we think is all going on, and we're adjusting to that, we are that which we're adjusting to. And it's not a movement of life. So we're moving in a way that is not in the movement of life, but in adjustment to this illusory herd, this illusory group, this illusory world. It's not really real, but we're entrained by it. And we're afraid of clear perception, because then we would be alone and not part of the group. And if we saw the group clearly, we would not want to be a part of it. And I did write down a possible why. Maybe the question really is, why ask why? But really my why is because I've seen we're all homeless, which means we are the homeless people. We're not separate, we are them. And if we saw that, we would help. I remember once in Map Consciousness seeing and saying to myself, we all die homeless. And I don't know what that means exactly, but insight is that magic. It's not that you are seeing something. Some energy brings that seeing. Seeing is some energy being translated into insight. The brain must be a translator of insight. So this energy can't bring the seeing if we're only seeing our past associations and living in the past. We can't see the present moment. The seeing can't bring the present moment to our awareness. The only thing that's wrong is thinking in terms of right and wrong. And thinking there are things. Life is an awareness that unfolds some energy new, that is beyond the grasp of right and wrong and things. Seeing with language creates things. Seeing with awareness creates possibilities. And one can move with that creation. Otherwise, we're only reacting to things. and not creating by seeing possibilities. Seeing as awareness unfolds beauty. If we suspend the language of the past, then beauty is there, and we can speak as that. So those are my random little insights for today, and I don't really know where it's going with speaking them like that. I don't really like rating like that, but they seem to be these little snippets on their own, not an extrapolation of something through being aware of a lot of context that one has built. So maybe I haven't really built that context to just speak that fluidly, and we'll see. Another thing I could do is just speak those as I see them instead of writing them down. I'm not sure where that'll go, but it's kind of about utilizing technology to help facilitate unfolding that voice, whatever that is, and in what way it wants to be expressed, and in what medium. And it could just be the medium of talking to myself, and talking that way to myself might actually create my external life differently, which doesn't look like me talking to myself on the street, walking by myself around other people. It looks completely different, but talking to myself in this way could be a seed of something else. Just like the way we talk to ourselves in our head, that doesn't I can't think of the word, that doesn't resemble our actual outer life, yet that circular talk creates, if you want to say the word creates, our outer life. So this different self-dialogue talk might create a different outer life that's not based on habit. I'm not sure. I'm just wondering. And the wondering will create the sign.